and that's really fun. And Portland Timbers 2 continue to be as surprised as I am by Footy Donso being with them.
Is that the only good news for out of Portland right now?
Yeah.
Their first team won the MLS's back tournament.
It's true. It's a weird
But-
dichotomy, isn't it?
But, I mean, for the 2 side, yes. The fact that they scored twice against Reno helps.
They're the only team in the league with a point.
Do better. Timbers 2. I love, like, the Footy Denso signing. I literally tweeted out, like, wow, and their club account liked it. Because, like, it's so bizarre to me. Where it's like this kind of club legend gets sort of lost in obscurity and like in China or like in the Netherlands or something for like 3 years, and then he comes back. And so now, and believe me, I have a soft spot for old dudes on teams with children on them. But it's like a 36-year-old center back playing with a bunch of like 17-year-old American kids who like probably don't know who he is.
Thing is, like, their back line needs the most help, in my opinion.
It's true, but I don't think having a very slow man would help that out.
Well, I don't know.
Just me.
I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering if he might be fine.
I mean, fine is a very objective term.
In comparison, yeah.
They're giving up nearly 4 goals a game. I mean, already at a minus 19 in goal differential. You have to, I think, RGV, Union 2, other sides that have negative double-digit goal differentials right now.
It's so sad. We got a St. Louis Academy kid over there right now, and I hate to see him done up that way.
The Indy-Pittsburgh game was kind of interesting.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
Pastor gets another goal.
And we skipped this. I wish I had my notes in front of me. But Andrew Carlton, like, renaissance, right? Everyone loves him again. Because perhaps this loan is working. Please discuss.
Yeah, I mean...
So he's had some comments, yeah.
I did. I don't think he's the best playmaker in USL right now. I think that belongs to Canardo Forbes.
Yeah.
I think there's also a lot of people in the championship that were not very happy to see that tweet, by the way. So that'll be fun.
In what way? I'm thinking of a lot of different ways.
The idea, and this is nothing. He's been okay. I have to preface this. Andrew Carlton has been a revelation. I'm very glad that he's playing well. I am very glad that Indy 11 has apparently been a good spot for him to settle down. I think he's playing really fucking fun soccer, and I think him and Tyler Pasher is a really fun combination that should be a thing for a while. That being said, I think to say that he is the best playmaker in the USL Championship right now, or in the last year or two, is a very U.S. men's national team / MLS serving take that is widely incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big league. That guy...
It's a big league. There's a lot of guys that have been doing it for longer than he has, that have been doing it better than he has, that are not getting the credit because they aren't weirdly disgraced former United States men's national team players.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are emotionally invested in his success as soccer fans.
Yeah.
So when he does well, so when he does well, it's like, I mean, USL has been talking about Carlton for years about will he figure it out? Does he need a new place? Does he need a new scene? Does he need a different coach that's going to hold him to a different level of account? And so, like, to see him finally be successful is like, yay, that, the trouble kid is finally, like, but I do think there is an element of, like, we're overlooking the talent that's already here and diminishing the talent that's here to celebrate someone who's, like, is good and has been good.
Yep.
But I think there's just an extra level of emotional investment in him being successful that I wish that other players got that same emotional investment.
I agree.
And maybe because they're not American, maybe because they're Jamaican, if you will, that they're being overlooked for just how incredible these players are playing on these pitches, but it's like, because he's American, and we always overhype Americans, and Freddie Adu, for example, that we're so emotionally invested in that next guy that when someone finally happens, it's like we're over the moon. But I do think it as a league, it does a disservice to the league itself to not highlight some of these international players who are just killing it.
I completely agree. It's exactly what I was thinking, that, Andrew Carleton, for a guy who covers MLS and USMNT hopefuls, that's the story. Like, he's super excited about it. He sees one game or a couple. He probably saw a few games of him doing well and was like, hey, I'm going to tweet this. This is great. I'm also going to say he's the best. Well, guys like us know that's not necessarily true, but again, like you said, that's not the story. Canardo Forbes is not exciting to someone outside of the USL, whereas we know how exciting and awesome that is.
And
the Bob Lilly
I don't even
story,
know if it's. I don't even know if he's not exciting. He's just not a name.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
You're not like, oh yeah, Kenny Forbes.
Yeah.
Because you're like, who the fuck? Like, no one. Who? Yeah.
But here's the other thing too: is some of us have seen a lot of Atlanta United 2019, 2018. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is a nice lesson to everyone. And this doesn't have to be hateful at all. This is a nice lesson to everyone that Carleton, he was an idiot. He made some mistakes with how he operated in Atlanta. He looked this good, in my opinion, practically this good with Atlanta United too. They just sucked. He was surrounded by not this level of talent. Yes. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was playing on a
pasture. Yeah.
He was playing on a plus U19 team, basically, is what he was playing.
Yeah.
I don't think he tried as hard to defend the way he does with Indy, which is really nice to see. And I do think he's motivated because of the environment of Indy 11. He's got a bunch of guys trying to do better than him. He's got guys that will expect more of him if he messes up, instead of him being the best on the team. So, I mean, this has been a perfect, awesome thing to see. And I do think, Alan, I think this is what you were getting at, that there's probably a bunch of guys who could be very good playmakers on some really crappy teams in the USL, And so I think that's something we should all try to look out for a little bit better when we watch these games with a tactical eye.
Yeah. Ryan, thoughts?
I don't know. I think it's have Carleton's development go into USL. It seemed like it wasn't a good fit in Atlanta United 2, and it was just kind of too early for him at the MLS level. But like we were saying, it's just this league is so large that to call Carleton the best of them is almost overlooking so many other players within this league. Like you had said earlier, Canardo Forbes, which I agree with, is I believe currently the best playmaker in USL Championship. Like you said earlier, Evan, it's just it's almost too much to focus on across the entire league. But I feel like the loan deal is still working out for Carleton. It'll be interesting to see if there will be more people like Carleton who kind of followed the same route, that if it's just not working out at the MLS level, that you send them to a season in the USL and see how they develop from there.
Yeah, that's a new cool developing story too, is if you compare this loan of Andrew Carleton, where it's obviously helped him and it's helped his status, to, I forgot his name, I apologize, but the coach of Hartford, who came over from Southampton's U23, he was the head coach there. He's African, but he played for Southampton back in the day. But he came over and coached, became a coach. He got out of that system and became a coach of a USL club, which is a weird move. But we heard an interview and also a story from, who wrote that story? I think it was Nicholas Murray, about him. But combine that story with the interview with Uncle Sam's Soccer podcast with the owner of Hartford, and just hearing like what that guy knew last year versus what he learned from Southampton when he went over there to visit, and what this coach has been able to do and teach him. And they've even brought over, this is what I'm getting at, they brought over a U23 player from Southampton on loan because of that relationship. And it's interesting to hear that. You can think about OC for sure, about the deal with the Rangers, and you can think about Norwich City and Tampa Bay Rowdies having a deal. All those guys are sending people over to the USL, and they're getting minutes against grown men, and it could be better than if they just spent a whole season with a U23 team. Like, USL is somewhere above U23 in England. I don't know where they would be as far as Championship League 1, League 2 in the UK, but it's a good landing spot for some players, and I hope that continues to grow because it's a fun story to follow as well.
Yeah, those kids in Orange County from Rangers are doing a heck of a job keeping up with. I mean, if you watch that Phoenix match, there's a couple of those young kids playing defense against Solomon Asante and doing a pretty good job. So I think there is going to be a continued development of trying to reach across the pond, if you will, to bring in some talent on both sides of the touchline, both on the field and off the field. I think it's exciting to see that development and to see what success that brings to the players and the coaches.
I just want to talk to those kids in OC after the season's over to be like, listen, was this easy for you, or was like the physicality a step up? I want the exit interview, or I want to be a fly on the wall for that exit interview. Hopefully
I'll put in an email to Chad and see what happens.
Yeah, get me that interview.
And this is about halfway through the season, so is this when Louisville goes on a run and makes it into a playoff spot?
They gotta win. Carson, give us a comment while we talk about it.
Every year, they're so deep. They're so good. This will be really funny coming from me. I was watching the highlights back of the Phoenix match. I forgot Santi was there.
Yeah, and he comes off of the bench even. He's
the embarrassment of riches they have, where I'm like, oh yeah, Santi Moar, who would start on maybe literally any other team, is off the very much off the bench for Phoenix. And I always feel like Louisville's the same way, where it's like, well, okay, I know that Brian Ownby's not going to do anything in the playoffs, right? And then he's going to score 4 goals in 4 games and, lift the cup at the end of the year. So me saying that about him is not going to hurt that bad, or at all, because I'm saying it about him. I can't bring myself to be like, well, Louisville, it's too late, because it's never too late. As long as they're in the thing, they have a chance to win it, which I know is true about everybody, but especially them. I'm always just like, I don't know, wait for it.
Yeah, especially them. I was trying to remember who they brought in. I was asking for a striker. I forgot. It's Jason Johnson is now at Lou City on top of that, right? And because they were struggling at first, I thought it was interesting they brought him in, even though they got Lancaster and
Gamber,
yeah. So, and Jam, they're getting deeper and deeper, even moving forward. So, yeah, I'm scared because St. Louis is in the group. They're probably gonna take off here. And I think we play them 3 more times, something like that. It's kind of crazy.
I think they're 3 points back and game in hand.
Yeah, it's close. We're all, and that's why we can talk about this next, because that's why St. Louis drew against Sporting Kansas City 2 the same week that they lost to Tulsa, who looked great against us. And then totally different against San Antonio a few days later, and what they did worked, and it was what they should have done. But now St. Louis had to play SKC2 again, and I was all nervous because if that wasn't a win, St. Louis was going to start dropping down to the bottom, and Lou City was going to start picking up. So that group's tight, and SKC2 being okay is making it more difficult. That shocker of SKC2 actually being okay. I didn't see that coming. But St. Louis did win 3-1, and it was convincing. They got a lot of rest, and you could tell, and maybe that's all they needed. That the trouble last week was because they didn't get much rest. But that's something that every team's dealing with, so I'm sure we're going to see a lot and hear about that a lot going forward. Especially with OC, right?
Yeah, and there's only 4 teams left who haven't lost a match. So it's been as competitive as normal.
Yeah.
I think some of the groups are getting tight, and it's been really fun to watch a lot of these really competitive matches. Even Tampa Bay Miami was like enjoyable to watch.
Oh yeah. No, let's talk about that. I watched as much of that as I could. I'm sorry, it wasn't the whole game, but um, they got. We mentioned last week how they turned the GM back into the coach, who was the coach for 18 and 19 seasons. Yes.
How dare you disrespect that man's name?
Thank you. I knew I'd forget, but they looked like a totally different team. Like that team is tough and they defend. The team before he took over was not like that.
I think the week before or last week even, Neil Collins was like, "Yeah, we beat him 3-0, but like that's not what that team is."
Right. He knew it.
Like he was like, "They're a better team than that." And Digwesh this week went, "Yes, we are. Thank you." I love those games. There's something very like old school soccer romance about like the games like that, where it's like in the rain, it's two teams, they're kind of close to each other, they just want to take each other's legs off for 90 minutes, and like I love that. I think that's because I had to watch Bethlehem Steel play like St. Louis FC and Pittsburgh Riverhounds for like 3 years, and so I just missed that. Like, hey, is your leg okay? But yeah, it was one of those nice throwback. Like this is why USL is so much. It's just a very unique product, I think. For me with that Tampa game for sure. And then, man, Phoenix Rising really can't stop scoring golazos. Like every one of their goals, I'm like, wow, that was pretty. All right.
Fleming's is like practically unguardable. Like he found just a nice pocket of space, and he was like, all right, you're not going to step to me. I'm just going to bury this. And it's like, watching that as someone who was watching it, hoping the other team would actually like do halfway decent, and maybe get a point. Like it's just like you get a little bit frustrated, and you just got to tip your hat. Like that's just he's just an amazing talent right now, and he's just playing out of his mind.
I think he's the best attacker for sure. I saw Sam Dorr say that, and I was like, wait a minute. And then literally, I think 15 minutes later, I saw the clip of him collecting the ball sort of on the half turn at the top of the box, rouletting around a defender, and I don't know if he scored. I can't remember. I didn't care at that point. I was screaming at that roulette. It was incredible. How many guys can collect a ball in that little of space, roulette around a guy, and take a shot? It's in MLS even. That's hard to find.
Yeah, Piranha's unreal.
And
he's right.
And that wasn't even like that's not even a terrible defender. Like he stepped up from League One in Lansing to that's Stoneman, and he's had a really good season. Like he shut down Shauna Coley for a good chunk of that Orange County match. He's a good defender.
He died.
And then that. Yeah. And it's like, but it's one of those things that's like you can have a great defender and you just get beat by a better offensive play. And it's just like you get mad, but then you look, it's like how many people in the USL are making that turn?
Yeah.
And you can't really get mad. It's like there's just a better player just beat you. Like
100%.
Yeah.
Someone made that comment. I was watching, I forgot what game, but they were like commenting about the Indy 11 game, and they were talking about how Indy, was it the Louisville game where like Louisville kind of owned the game the whole time, and then Pasher came in at the last minute and scored a banger, or maybe it was Pittsburgh actually, and so they were like, listen, Pittsburgh did everything right here. Like they didn't do anything wrong. They owned this game, and Pasher just came in and scored a banger that no one did anything wrong, where like you don't want to tip your hat because it feels unfair, right? But there are just guys in this league that can just do that. It's nice that we don't have a salary cap in that way, I guess.
Another thing interesting out west is Orange County's played 5 games and has allowed 1 goal, and that covers 2 games against Phoenix. Now they've only scored 5 in those 5 matches, but only allowing 1 goal in 5 matches is pretty crazy. Like, they only have to play Phoenix 1 more time.
September 26th.
That's great. I think a few teams are. I know St. Louis is like they're taking the mentality like this is a World Cup style tournament with the groups kind of in a way, maybe extended, but a lot of teams are defending the hell out of the ball early in the season and just waiting for the attack to develop, and I think they'll really pick up speed at the end. And some are succeeding at defending and some are not, but I think the end of the season is going to be red hot going into the playoffs. The teams that get through are going to be on a roll, I think. Evan, I feel like I've cut you off a couple times. I'm sorry.
No, you're great. The other question that I wanted to bring up, since I got into a friendly debate with Phil Bakke about it. So if you win this thing, do you get to start over your crust?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say you do. I mean, look at it from the NBA or Stanley Cup; those are still going to count as actual championships. But both of those had a shortened regular season. They excluded entirely, or some teams got in that, like for instance, my Columbus Blue Jackets, under a normal season, have been in the playoffs, but we played our way in. So I view it as it's still, and you should certainly get a star out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because aside from last season that had the balanced schedule, well, just for that 1 year, USL doesn't typically have a balanced schedule to begin with. So the season was always going to be pretty unbalanced going into things.
I think the only thing that you push back on is like the group setup, like the small little divisions, makes it a little bit like even more unbalanced between, you know, some of those fringe playoff teams that if you're in the wrong group, you're not getting in. But if you're in the right group, you are. But I think it boils down to if your club wins, you put a star on your kit. You put a star on, and then if your team doesn't win, you're just going to banter about it in the off season. I think for the team that wins, it's just going to be just as exciting, and it's going to feel just like a regular championship. And I don't begrudge any team that puts a star on their chest for winning the season that they were given. It's not the team's fault that this has happened. But I do think there's a little bit of like, well, I mean, you were playing in this group and you got a little bit easier path to the playoffs, and you know your grouping was in the easier side of the bracket than it should have been. But when it boils down to it, you play a season, you have a championship, you have a playoff. I think if you win, you put a star on your kit, and then the rest of the league can banter about how it's it's an asterisk. Phoenix has leaned in and saying, own the asterisk. I think it boils down to teams that probably aren't and don't have a chance of winning is like, this isn't really a season. But the teams that are gonna proudly wear that star on their chest.
It's kind of like the Open Cup. Like if you get eliminated in the first few rounds, you're like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You get to the last two rounds, you're like, Open Cup is the best.
Yeah, I say if you win the tournament, you should put a star or on the kit. If not, it's another season. You'll go again next year.
Do you guys feel like this is more of a normal season than MLS is back? Or
No.
equal?
No,
Okay.
no, shut up. No, it's normal. Shut up.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, a little bit, and the whole regional thing, but I think that also just comes down to USL doesn't have the money or the time or the ability to put all their teams in a bubble somewhere.
Right.
We had
and scheduled out and do
35
all that
teams.
stuff.
Where would we be able to bubble 35 teams? MLS struggled to find a place to bubble 4.
I don't know.
You do it like the NHL, where there's a couple of bubbles that
You do 2 bubbles.
you do 2 bubbles.
Yeah.
Multi bubble. I'm down for a multi bubble.
I don't know. I feel like since it's regional, since we're not just all in one spot, that it feels more real. But it's also not normal to play the same team 4 times in a season for soccer. So.
And the thing that kills me is that it's Miami, and there's a couple other teams that are like, we have played 4 games, and that's rough. like what Pony was saying last week, where it's like, well, the way the schedule works out, it's like someone's either gonna like get really hurt, or you're gonna have a lot of really tired players all the time. The product's gonna suffer for it.
Yeah, Atlanta United 2 and Indy 11 have both played the most games in the league right now. And then you look at a team like Miami, Las Vegas Lights, and Los Angeles, who've all just played 4 games. Even during the USL season, there would always be a little bit of somewhat of an unbalanced table, just that teams playing just like an uneven amount, but that would never go beyond like maybe 1 to 3 games off here, because you'd have postponements due to thunderstorms or rearranged fixtures due to open stuff. But 5 is certainly tougher to kind of work through.
It is indeed. Pulling up any games to see if we missed anything vital.
I think we got it, right?
How's Sac Republic doing?
Okay, all right.
Tied on point with Reno at 15, but Reno.
You know, Pony has so much faith in Austin Bold, and I mean, they drew San Antonio. San Antonio was at home. I don't know. I was doubting Pony, and then I kind of took it back in my head, thinking, man, maybe he's right about Bold. They just are able to figure out how to win, even though they don't look flashy.
Mm-hmm.
He calls Austin Bold tomorrow. Should be rather exciting.
Yeah, I think we got him.
Great.
I would like to hear one more thing about San Diego Loyal not being able to score. What's the deal there, Alan?
It's been 3 matches with 0 goals scored.
Yes.
I mean, against Orange County, they were close. They looked good for a large part of the time. Like, they're okay, but it's like in a 34-game season, you can hope they figure it out and do fine. But like Irvin Parra's now out. I don't think Lawal's with the team anymore, so that's why they brought in Ben Spencer. So it's like there's not a lot of attacking players. Raul Mendiola's in Vegas now, and he was a fun player in the midfield and continues to be a fun player in the midfield. But it's just they sat back really far. They put, they were basically 11 guys in their own third against Phoenix, and so anytime they got the ball out, it was like their isolated striker against a Phoenix back 4 and then a couple midfielders who drop back quickly. It's been frustrating, and it's one of those like you just want them to figure it out, and they're going to figure it out. But with a group like Orange County and Phoenix, like they're pretty much on the outside looking in at this point already. So that Reno match is going to be a really fun one to see if they can put it together, because they look good against them in preseason, but they're just like defensively they're pretty solid. Midfield, they're defensively fine. They had a couple good chances against Sacramento. They had a couple good chances against Orange County, and they even had a couple good looks against Phoenix, but they just can't get any good shots on frame that test any goalkeeper. Like, you got to get good shots against Zach Lubin. Like, you can't just we're going to shoot it on frame and hope. So it's a little bit of against good goalkeepers. Frederick Dew in Orange County is phenomenal. And, Zach Lubin made a couple good saves too.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's failing. It's just it's few and far between, and there's no killer instinct on that team right now. We talked about that Tyler Pasher, just amazing play to put the team on his shoulders. There's no one like that in San Diego right now. That's really putting the team on their shoulders. How much
of this can we put on Landon Donovan just for fun?
I mean, a decent amount, but I know Nate Miller does a lot of the tactical stuff, the trainings. Every time I talk to him, he seems really smart. He seems like he knows what he's doing. I put a lot of faith in him, but I think it just boils down to They're an expansion team that built defense first and hope
Yeah.
they got lucky with like a couple young kids on offense, and it just hasn't happened yet. And maybe this is a get through year one, build to year two type of situation, which I mean is fair for an expansion team. Like not everyone's going to be in El Paso. It's I think that's what they were hoping for is you get that one guy who's good up top, and you kind of roll with that and win. Like if they score a goal, they beat Sacramento. If they score a goal, it's a different game against Orange County. So it's there. It's just there's no one there really like who can put a team on their back offensively.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Well, thanks for listening. Phil, Alan, Ryan, thanks for chatting. Feel free to follow us at the USL show. Tune in next week when I make an Emmanuel Kant reference. Yeah. Keep everyone grounded, because I know people tune into the show for soccer, but they're also here for, transcendental idealism. So, yeah, thanks to Roughnecks Curves, Icarus FC, and the Beautiful Gaming Orca podcast for having us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us live. Thanks for all that you do. And until next time, hey, don't be a dick. That's our one rule here. I break it all the time. But, do as I say, not as I do.